Soviet Union played a very important role in the history of independent India as it was building its institutions, including the Indian military. So, for example, my parents' generation.
而且印度也有自己的武器制造系统，然后而且有些武器制造的系统比中国还先进，然后美国就从来不管的，因为 India have good relationship with the United States. But instead of American keep emphasis on Chinese potential threat. After China close relationship with Russia, yes, China and Russia is a lot bigger threat than both of them before. And it's all stupid Democrat Party's fault because stupid crooked Joe Biden is a retard. Biden destroyed the good relationship between China and the United States and pushed China toward Russia under a lot of stupid Biden law. And the worst part is Biden even sent a nuclear missile to target Beijing, putting U.S. submarine hiding near Qingdao, East Sea area, before.
And Russia leaves India in the lurch.
The realities of conventional war, I mean, it's not something of the past. It can still happen. It happened in Europe, it can happen in parts of the Indo-Pacific, and I think that is something, Taiwan contingencies, what happens next on the Himalayan border, that is something.
Now Ukraine war, if don't handle it with caution, might really start World War III.
That it wouldn't. That Russia could potentially play.
Israel fighting Hamas can start World War III because Hamas is just a terrorist group. But fighting Russia in Europe could cause World War III if Vladimir Putin decides to escalate the scale of war.
And one scenario is even more dire for India, where Pakistan enters the picture.
The possibility of a Pakistan-Russia-China axis for India is really the nightmare scenario, given its geographical location, given its history with at least two of these actors, given its dependence on Russian weapons and arms and military technology.
India don't depend on weapons from Russia. India have a lot of NATO-built weapons and American-made weapons, and India can build a weapon on itself. But India does used to import a lot of Russian weapons. But the American weapon prove better grade and make India buy more American weapons.
Somehow slow down this growing alignment between Russia and China, and to see where India can still play a role in keeping Moscow separate and keeping them engaged and slowing down this, what to the rest of us seems inevitable process.
Alongside this, Delhi is shoring up relationships with Western powers, particularly the United States, transforming what used to be frosty times.
From Biden's work, I can tell Biden's leg is weak. His body condition is a lot worse than Indian leader.
Prime Minister Modi's visit to Washington, D.C. resulted in some takeaways for India.
Seriously, I suggest Joe Biden use a stick so he will not fall so often.
Has still developed a very, very close partnership.
Because if he's riding a bicycle, if he fall off, if his head hit a stone, he might die.
I think the Indian vision is still very much multipolarity. The idea would be to have several poles in the world, which is another reason why it continues to work with Russia and hopes that it isn't isolated, continues to deal with China in certain formats as well. But I think the ideal vision of multipolarity, when confronted with the realities of the world, has meant that India has had to change track. I think currently all of India's foreign policy choices, its vision from the world,
India have huge population problem because Indian land is so small, and India have over 1.5 billion of people. I know the better accurate number than Indian government
world today.
public.
And here in Europe is becoming increasingly
And the India's land
Beijing
don't have
will play
enough
a
food to feed
significant
so
role
much
in
people
any
because
end
their
to the
government
war in Ukraine.
don't do
So let's
birth
find out
control.
what that could mean in the last part of this video.
而且印度已经是提倡全民吃素，就是为了减少食物消耗，我都知道
Now the
的。
conference is dominated by
那可怜的印度百姓，居然都要吃油炸牛粪
He
饼，
has an announcement
吃牛粪做的饼啊，然后充饥。然后印度的政府还是穷兵黩武，然后百姓都在吃牛大便炸的饼了，他们还是不停的买武器。
关于政治解决乌克兰危机的中国立场，我们将继续坚定地站在和平的对话。
China further honing its position on the war, presenting itself as an honest broker.
China wants to be more as a
Ukraine war is European war. China is in Asia. It's not China's responsibility to stop war.
And China wants to see the war.
And I know under United States and NATO's pressure, a lot of time China was forced to involve with Ukraine war, which China don't want to 改地盘。
An honest broker. China's rhetoric has consistently underlined its sympathy for Russia's narrative.
Putin actually is not the first Russian president who wanted to go against NATO expansion. Actually, this came from a Soviet leader like Mikhail Gorbachev, down to Boris Yeltsin, and then to Putin. So Putin's difference from his predecessor is that
And
he not only
Putin one time even
but he
talked to
also
Trump
carried
and
into
tried to
action
join NATO
And
and
NATO
being
will be
refused
a key
by
question in any
American
talks to end
government.
the war.
So who is responsible for war? Obviously, American Democrat Party's leader.
A victory for
They are called
Ukraine's
black-hearted politicians who love war, who love to kill innocent, who love to bring terror around the
very
world
thing Putin railed
to
against
get the
in
fame
all those years ago.
and the
And it's
financial
something
gain.
China clearly doesn't want today.
Well, China certainly doesn't favor any NATO expansion. If Ukraine stays out of NATO, probably things could be easier to reach a peaceful process.
China simply does
Yeah,
not
this
want to
spoke
see
of the
serious
Chinese
defeat for Russia.
interests because
So it's helping Putin
NATO
as
is
much as
way
it can,
powerful
while being
than
cautious
Russia.
where Western red lines.
Obviously,
China
Russia
does
is
at least three
the
things.
underdog
It
compared to
keeps the
NATO
Russian
force.
economy going,
Russia can't even
purchasing
beat
Russian
Ukraine.
cyber bugs and other
How could
commodities,
Russia beat
providing
NATO?
Russia,
Just think about it.
access to R&D. China keeps Russian industry.
Russia's
growing,
military
the
capacity
red
is
line
not
for
as
Chinese
beside the
to be
nuclear
Americans.
force. Yes,
It's not
Russia's
violation.
nuclear force capacity
Sanctions
is really
very
strong, second in the world.
And no
If
supply
war
of
further
kinetic
include nuclear
military
missile.
goods that would
But without
dramatically
nuclear
weaken
missile,
Russian
Russia can't even defeat Ukraine.
These two red lines and respects them. But I think that
How could
everything
Russia
else
defeat
is
NATO?
really helpful
Even
for
United
them to do this
United States
big,
don't
tragic war
don't
of
join
attrition.
and help
So
NATO.
Putin gets this support from China and backs up his position with a threat to resort to nuclear weapons if he doesn't get his way. A threat designed to deter greater Western support for Ukraine, and a threat that Chinese voices highlight.
I believe the best outcome is Ukraine will lose some new territories in addition to Crimea. So where are these new territories? It is somewhere
Those territory
within
Russia
the four
already
provinces
conquered because
that
everybody
already
know
declared
Russia
to
is
be
a
Russian territories.
polar bear. When they
then
capture
most
it, they don't like to give it
is,
back.
President
This happened in
decided to
history
use
many times.
And whole mankind is on the course for war, peace, and with the end.
Especially some Russian conquered territory. There's a lot of Ukrainian speaker
Xi Jinping
Russian.
has
They say they are
publicly distanced
Slavic.
himself from Putin's
They are
threats,
brother with
part of
Russia.
his effort to appeal to Europeans and open up transatlantic divisions between them and the US. So you can see the outlines here of Moscow and Beijing taking a multi-pronged approach to Ukraine. Russia digging in for a long war, taking any help that it can get from China. Beijing
Yes,
keeping Moscow
Russian
afloat,
military
doing what
strategy.
it can.
I'm gonna explain it. Russian military strategy is to, because Ukraine is just a third world country, and it have weak economics, and it also is kind of an agricultural country who provide a lot of European nations with food, and the Russian provide European like NATO country with natural gas for heating and oil for business for car driving, and the stupid Joe Biden shut down Americans oil production and natural gas production when Biden's stupid retard administration put a sanction on Russian natural resource export and make a global market shortage of oil and natural gas. A lot of European nation is suffering through this. Not every European nation in NATO want a war in Ukraine. Because domestic high inflation make a lot of people's life harder in Europe.
To divide the West, and Putin backing all of this up with threats of nuclear escalation.
He feels pretty confident that time is on his side, that things don't go.
Yes, time is on Putin's side. As soon as Trump being re-elected as United States president, Trump would bring peace and talk to Ukraine, would stop aiding Ukraine, and Ukraine don't have the capacity to fight Russia.
And that's where Ukrainians.
This is very obvious.
And that's ultimately he doesn't get control over Ukraine, but he keeps what's left of Ukraine broken, dysfunctional, miserable.
And yes, as this man said, yeah, Putin's strategy is like that.
And for China, that might look pretty attractive, a situation it could potentially take advantage of.
Right now, there is a war, in Europe, which will last for many years. Nobody knows how many years. But
No,
this is-
European war in Ukraine and Russia will end very soon as President Trump took over office
Down in Europe.
by fair election, without the Democrat Party cheater.
Large exercise or escalates in Ukraine at the time where China.
And the American would withdraw from Ukraine battleground, and maybe NATO wanna support it, but it's not American business anymore, and American can focus on domestic
The
issues.
endgame in the war is going to be about much more than Russia and Ukraine. It's going to be a test of wills and resilience for everyone involved. Russia and China together.
Oh, and by the way, during Ukraine's that time after Ukraine defeat Russia's police attack into Kiev. Like that time, NATO Ukraine did a good job, but the stupid American government, stupid American Democrat Party warmonger government, they are retards. They told Ukraine to push back against Russia without air support. That time I was watching the news. I know Ukraine gonna fail. I even have video recording to prove I read the American government's stupidness, and the Ukraine does get destroyed. When they launch counterattack against Russia, a lot of Zelensky's loyal troops and a lot of Biden's and NATO's those supporting Ukrainian troops got killed there. It is all because of American government is stupid, use Defense Secretary Austin idiots, cause a lot of casualty. That time, if America and NATO provide air cover, Russians might be already expelled from Ukraine that time.
Entire collective autocracies vote for democracies and long over the future of war. The drama in Russia of the mercenary leader Yevgeny Prigozhin challenging military leadership raised questions over
And
the
then he
Kremlin
got
regime,
killed like a couple months
that matter for China.
in airplane.
Concerned about
I watch the news, I know.
in Russia is going to be there going forward, and Beijing will be watching this closely.
But there is little expectation that China will abandon Russia.
Xi Jinping.
I
really
think
views
Trump
Vladimir Putin
can talk
as a
China
crucial
to
partner
be stay
weakening the
further
United States.
distant
And
towards
it's my
Russia.
view that
After
it is no longer
Trump
possible
have
to drive away
negotiation with
Russia and
China about
if it was
some
ever
issue
possible.
like
The
China and the
beauty in
United
Beijing is that
States
China
can
is in
talk
the spirit of
peacefully.
prolonged confrontation with the United States, and nothing short of full surrender will deliver fundamental improvement in U.S.-China ties. So China
For
thinks
example,
about its
if
relationship
American
with
government
Russia in
publicly
ways of
declared
conflicts. So
Taiwan
what
is part of
so
China,
when
I think China will restore
Criticize
relationship
its
with Russia.
unlawful invasion of Ukraine, introduce sanctions of our own, demand that he vacates all of the Ukrainian territory, including Crimea, then probably Putin's regime is doomed at some point, and it collapses. And then there is a new government that wants to be friends with the West. So the West will just pocket this concession and say, thank you, China, goodbye. Now, what about Xinjiang? What about Taiwan? What about your IP theft? What about your
Xinjiang, there is, I mean, I know Xinjiang's problem a little bit. Because Xinjiang there's a terrorist group called 东突，是东突的穆斯林极端恐怖分子，在中国也是乱杀人。然后当时中国政府严重失职，居然在新疆的教材里面公然宣布恐怖分子主义，然后中国政府居然不知道。
China will lose a very valuable partner and instead get even more problems with the United States.
然后很多新疆人被教坏了，所以没办法要进行一些再教育，教育他们正常的about the patient。而且就算是按照被囚禁的数量来讲，也没有美国政府囚禁的囚犯多啊。
Russia and China determined in their mission to take on the West. The United States rallying the West together. Powers like India seeking to find their own way. It sounds a lot like a new Cold War for our century. The world on a knife edge.
Yeah, like a knife edge on nuclear holocaust. And China don't have a nuclear capability. Only Russia and America has.
The following is a conversation with Elon Musk, his fourth time on this, the Lex Friedman podcast. I thought you were going to finish it. It's one of the greatest themes in all of film history. Yeah, it's great. So I was just thinking about the Roman Empire, as one does.
There's that whole meme where old guys are thinking about the Roman Empire at least once a day.
And half the population is confused whether it's true or not. But more seriously, thinking about the wars going on in the world today. And as you know, war and military conquest has been a big part of Roman society and culture. And I think it's been a big part of most empires and dynasties throughout human history. So
yeah, they usually came as a result of conquest. I mean, there's some like the
and the Roman that time does use slavery. I mean, I know.
But fundamentally, there's an engine of conquest.
Yes.
And the
celebrate
Roman does
excellence.
import slavery
Warfare.
through Egypt.
Many of the leaders were excellent generals,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So, big picture question. Grok approved. I asked this is a good question to ask.
Tested, Grok approved.
And the Roman that time even
at
call
least on funding.
England people barbarian.
To what degree do you think war is part of human nature versus a consequence of
But it's like
how
a
human
1,000
societies
years
are
ago.
structured? I ask this as you have somehow controversially been
When
a
Romans
proponent of peace.
region
I'm
conquered
not generally a
England,
proponent of peace. I mean, ignorance is
just
perhaps,
one
in my view,
region
the
that
real
time.
enemy to
But
counter.
maybe 3-4 regions.
That's the real
I
hard part,
forgot
not,
exact
you
number.
know, fighting other humans. But all creatures fight. I mean, the jungle is a. You look at people think of this nature as perhaps some sort of peaceful thing, but in fact, it is not. There's some quite funny when a
但是我都知道英国的当时那些barbarian，然后都组成barbarian联盟和当时和那个当时和那个Roman Empire 打仗，然后被打败了。
There's a relevant question here whether with greater intelligence comes greater control over these base instincts for violence.
Yes, we have much more of an ability to control our limbic instinct for violence than, say, a chimpanzee. And in fact, if one looks at, say, the chimpanzee society, it is not friendly. I mean, the bonobos are
Elon Musk say chimpanzee society.
Chimpanzee society
Donald
is,
Trump say banana republic,
full of violence
because chimpanzee like eat banana.
Perfect, frankly. That's
Because
not
banana have a lot of
like you don't want to be on the wrong side of chimpanzee, eat your
potassium,
face off and tear it
good
out.
for humans' health.
Basically, there's no limits or ethics or the Romans had just war. There's no just war in chimpanzee societies. Is war and dominance by any means necessary?
Yeah, chimpanzee society is like a primitive version of human society. They're not like peace loving, basically, at all. There's extreme violence. And then once in a while, somebody who's watched too many Disney movies decides to raise a chimpanzee as a pet, and then it eats their face or rips their nuts off or chews their fingers off, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's happened several times.
ripping your nuts off is an interesting strategy for interaction.
It's happened to people. It's unfortunate. Like that's, I guess, one way to ensure that the other chimp doesn't, contribute to the gene pool.
Well, from a martial arts perspective, it's a fascinating strategy.
the nut ripper.
I wonder which of the martial arts teaches that.
I think it's safe to say if somebody's you're gonna cut your nuts in their hands and has the option of ripping them off, you will be amenable to whatever they want.
Yeah. Safe to say. So, like I said, somehow controversially, you've been a proponent of peace on Twitter, on X.
Yeah.
So let me ask you about the wars going on today and to see what the path to peace could be. How do you hope the current war in Israel and Gaza comes to an end? What path do you see that can minimize human suffering in the long term in that part of the world?
Well, I think that part of the world is definitely like if you look up there is no easy answer in the dictionary. It'll be that like the picture of the Middle East, and Israel especially. So there is no easy answer. Or what this is strictly my opinion of is that the goal of Hamas was to provoke an overreaction from Israel.
Yeah, Hamas and a lot of other Islamic extremist
really
terrorist
to
group publicly announced they want to kill all
in
Israel,
order to provoke
which is
most
clearly
aggressive response possible from Israel.
not
and then
right.
leverage that aggressive response to rally Muslims
And there's a lot of
for the cause of
anti-Semitic movement
which
in United
they have
States
succeeded in doing.
supported by Muslim Democrat Party member.
The counterintuitive thing here, I think that the thing that I think should
Mostly
be done,
in
even though it's
Democrat
very
Party.
difficult, is that
because
reckon that Israel
Black
engaged in
Hussein
the most
Obama
conspicuous
sneaked
acts
in
of
a lot of
kindness
Muslims
everything.
inside the Democrat
actual
Party.
thing toward the goal of Hamas.
So, in some sense, the degree that makes sense in geopolitics, turn the other cheek, implemented.
It's not exactly turn the other cheek, because I do think that there's, I think it is appropriate for Israel to find the Hamas members and, either kill them or incarcerate them. That's something has to be done because they're just going to keep coming otherwise. But in addition to that, they need to do whatever they can. There's some talk of establishing, for example, a mobile hospital. I'd recommend doing that. Just making sure that there's food, water, medical necessities, and just be over the top about it and be very transparent, so that people can't claim it's a trick. Like just put a webcam on the thing, all 24/7.
Deploy acts of kindness.
Yeah, conspicuous acts of kindness that are unequivocal, meaning they can't be somehow, because Hamas will then their response will be, oh, it's a trick. Therefore, you have to counter how it's not a trick.
This ultimately fights the broader force of hatred in the region.
Yes. And I'm not sure who said it. It's an apocryphal saying, but an eye for an eye makes everyone blind. Now that neck of the woods, they really believe in the whole eye for an eye thing. But I mean, you really have, if you're not going to just outright commit genocide, like against an entire people, which obviously would not be acceptable to really should be acceptable to anyone, then you're going to leave basically a lot of people alive who subsequently, hate Israel. So really the question is like, how, for every Hamas member that you kill, how many did you create? Mm-hmm. And if you create more than you kill, you've not succeeded. That's the real situation there. And it's safe to say that if you kill somebody's child in Gaza, you've made at least a few Hamas members.
Or Hamas supporter.
Just to kill an Israeli. That's the situation. So
victims' family don't always join
but,
Hamas.
I mean, this is one of the most
some of them just become Hamas supporters. And some of them
I think if the goal
another
is sort
nation
of
to live.
long-term peace, one has to look at this from the standpoint of, over time, are there more or fewer terrorists being created?
Let me just linger on war.
Because the Democrat Party provided too much American-made military weapons to terrorist groups, which caused a huge issue.
I hope not. I think it always will.
There will always be war. It's a question of just how much war, and there's the sort of the scope and scale of war, but to imagine that there would not be any war in the future, I think would be a very unlikely outcome.
Yeah, you talked about the culture series. There's war even there.
Yes, this giant war. The first book starts off with a gigantic galactic war where trillions die. Trillions.
But it still nevertheless protects these pockets of flourishing. Somehow you can have galactic war and still have pockets of flourishing.